I want to thank Homeland Realty, and they are located in New Concord, Freeport, and Cadiz, and they are sponsoring the recording today. So we also want to welcome our viewers at home who are watching this on the local TV channel. So I'm just going to turn it right over to Paul Brown, who's going to tell you about the fantastic things going on with the planning of this huge business park. We kind of keep changing the name, but you're going to hear more about how it's evolving, and it's going to transform our region. So we have a lot of people in the audience that, you know, I'm sure Paul will agree. If you have questions or you want to make a comment about something else that's going on, we want to do that. We want it to be interactive. So we'll go right ahead and get started. There you go, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And again, good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Paul Brown. My colleague here is Pam Jira. And together, we are the MAGNAM Research Park Foundation. So Pamela got Employee of the Year this year. She got it for the second time. So she gets a special parking space right outside of Magnum headquarters, which is 925 Military Road in Zanesville, Ohio. But anyway, there are, you know, I don't know how many of you here have heard of Magnum? Okay, that's good. And thank you for coming to learn more about it. For those that you that haven't heard about Magnum, please feel free to ask questions as we go along and we tell you about our project. So I felt like perhaps, I got to get this pointed at the right thing. Perhaps the best way to talk about this, you know, you've all heard presentations where at the end you have frequently asked questions. Well, we thought that we could frame this whole presentation around some frequently asked questions, and not the kinds of questions that you would normally hear, the more general ones, the more ones that we hear on the street. So first of all, one of the questions we hear is, you know, what do you see when you're out here, you're going down I-77 or you're going across I-70? What do you see in our region? Or what do you hear about in our region? Well, right now, if we talk about people, you know, you hear, I think there's a lot of gray hairs around. No offense, Pam. And me. But there's an aging population. There's you know, you may hear about some people that are uneducated. You may hear people being lazy, the young leaving the area. Those are the kinds of things, going somewhere else. Those are the kinds of things that people talk about in our region. Places, they may be talking about empty stores. They may be talking about farmland. They may talk about natural beauty. But they're talking about things not changing very much. And I got two-hand technology here. And things, what do we do in the area? Well, we eat, we watch TV. If you are an outdoors person, you may walk, you may hunt, you may fish, you may play sports, or you may go to another place, a city, to go out of the area to get some other activities. So that's kind of what we look around us and see. In fact, what we found out from our research is that there is no growth, has been no growth in our population in the last 15 years, and it's aging. The per capita income lags the nation, but also lags Ohio, and our educational attainment lags the state and the nation as well. So I think none of those things right now would be of surprise to people. So we're not, I mean, it leads us to conversations, chicken and egg, I call them chicken and egg conversations. You know, whether we have, for example, given these demographics, let's just take educational attainment in the skilled workforce, for example. We talk about how We can't bring businesses into town unless we have a skilled workforce. But we can't have a skilled workforce unless there's something to inspire these people to get more education. So we get involved in those conversations, those debates that really somehow you have to feel, you're left feeling like somehow you have to break the chain. So another question we get quite often and we ask is, why am I here? Well, generally these are some of the reasons that we find out from people. They have roots, they have family here, or they like the outdoors, they like the beauty of the area, they don't have anywhere else to go, and they've never been outside the area. So the question is, am I going to stay in the area if I make myself better? And do I believe that only the losers stay, or there is a reason to stay in the area? So, okay, that's the bad news. Good news is, what if? So the what ifs would be, what if I can make enough money in this region to stay? Enough money to meet the needs of my family, but also to have extra spending money. What if my family could live here in a thriving environment, a smart community? What if I could have a job that used and recognized my skills so I can get promoted? What if there are many things here to do year-round without ever having to leave the area? I don't think many people can wrap their heads around those kinds of things. So what if, we take this to the next level. What if major companies were attracted to our region because they had these kinds of things? Access to the lowest natural gas prices in the developed world, from the richest formations in the world, the shale formations. And then how about if we have great access to fresh water, and we have transportation lines that get you to over 50% of the populated areas in the United States within 1 day's drive. What if we had all those things? Well, the what ifs led us to a vision of the future to build a smart community in Southeast Ohio. And when we looked at this, we're looking at not only something that's very large, but something that we're taking a long-term vision of this. So not many people think long-term. I mean, a lot of our state agencies, a lot of our federal agencies are designed to have an immediate impact. If you want to get some particular funds to do something, you need to do it and be shovel ready in 18 months. But this takes a long-term view. But this is our conception is that we develop a 20-year project. The 20-year project would be 2,500 acres that would attract 300 or plus businesses, that would employ 10,000 employees, and would have an economic impact of $2.6 billion a year, and would have a university presence for R&D, and would be a live, work, and play environment.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Yes.
Will you care to share these slides after the meeting?
Yeah, we'll be glad to do that.
And you can stop taking notes if you have been, and we'll send them out to all of you.
Yeah, we'll be glad. Thank you,
Sure.
Jill. So those are the kinds of things that we had in mind when we were designing Magnum. The numbers that we got here are not numbers that we pulled out of the air. The impact statements come from a sister park that we visited, one of the nearest up in Cannonsburg. Anybody been to South Point 1 and 2 up in Cannonsburg off of 79? Okay, beautiful park, right? It's upscale. It looks like an Easton or a Polaris, but much more hillier than those two. But anyway, their park was, Pamela, you tell the history just, and you can do it from your seat, the history of Canonsburg a little bit.
We met with the officials at the Washington Redevelopment Authority and spoke with them about their park, and they told us that 20 years ago it was a place where there was a mental health hospital that the state had closed down, and there was a juvenile home as well that was not in operation. And so the hill had just been sitting there and nothing happening, and so the county had a vision for it. The state deeded over the money to the county, and that's how they began the South Point 1 and then later South Point 2 parks.
So, and then they're ready for a third development up there right now because they've, and of course, they built that park to relieve some congestion from the Pittsburgh metropolitan area. But anyway, that's 800 acres. We're looking at something that's more than twice the size of that, almost 3 times the size. By the way, I just came back from the Association of University Research Parks International Conference, and it happened to be in Huntsville, Alabama. And Huntsville, Alabama is known for NASA, but it's known for the Cummings Research Park down there. Cummings was built, started many years ago, but they're about 3,800 acres, and they're the second largest research park in the entire country, behind the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham. So that kind of puts it into perspective of what we're talking about. 2,500 acres is a huge development, and would put it up there among the top 1% of parks like this in the entire nation. So what if we had this mega business park, and it was near these crossroads that we happen to have in our region, 70 east and west and 77 north and south. One of our developers will tell you, Norm will tell you that one of the most important things for a economic development site like this is access, right, Norm? They have access to the major highways, and ideally that would be somewhere between 4.5 miles, 5 miles or less. And so we are right next to the crossroads and 2 major highways that crisscross the state. Looking down into the area itself, this entire area, this is the area that we're looking at here that's in red, and you can see in orange. And did everybody get a brochure when you came in? Okay, you'll see that shape probably on the front of your brochure. It looks like that. But anyway, this area in orange here is the 2,500 acres that we have identified, and that's called Wyoming. Been called Wyoming in the original Magnum study because it's wide open spaces. It's got rolling hills. If you've been down to the wilds, it looks like the wilds. A lot of rolling hills, a lot of knolls there, 60 feet top to bottom. You get great vistas. You can have a 100-acre plot for a major company that's coming in, and you can see miles and miles away. And you have a lot of natural beauty in the area as well with those lakes that are there. So great access, good roads, all kinds of transportation. We're looking at trucking, we're all looking at air coming in. We're between 2 airports. We have the river just south of here, and we actually have a rail line that came through here. It's used for coal, was used for coal, but it can be refurbished for rail to this area as well. So now I'd like to take you inside. Pamela and I looked at 2,500 acres. What can you do with 2,500 acres? And we hired an artist to scale that for us and to show us what you could put in a 2,500 acre live, work, and play environment. So Pam, would you talk about that?
So we did a lot of research looking around at places like Research Triangle Park and Cannonsburg and others, and realizing that the movement today really is to create a live, work, and play environment. So, not the long commutes, but people want to be very close to where they work, and they want to be able to have a pedestrian type of lifestyle. And so, as Dr. Brown said, we tried to figure out what could you do within 2,500 acres. And we asked an artist, this is not a master plan, no one will build from this, but we asked an artist to help us create a visual so that we could explain that as we went out and talked about it too. And the one, very little parameters, but one parameter that we did give him was that 60% of this land mass needed to be dedicated to businesses, business locations. And so what he created for us are very discrete sectors. We're imagining something much more integrated than that. But this lower level down here, and I don't know if you can really tell color in the back of the room, but they're kind of brown colored buildings. That is the industrial area. And in this picture, there are 150 of those sites, and some of them are massive. This one is 500,000 square feet under roof, just to give you kind of a sense of scale. So much more could be here. Also, not really knowing just yet at the time of this what might be the focus within the park, we realized that getting in and out is going to be vitally important, both of people and of goods. And with not a large airport in that area, we asked him to create a space for an airport in the event that something would need to be developed on site. So the artist used the Zanesville Airport as his model, lengthened the runways to 7,000 or 8,000 feet, and then created that on site and showed us that that's possible with all of the support services. It's possible to have it here on these grounds as well. And as I say, no one's gonna build from this, because someone pointed to me, well, you've got those planes taking off right over the housing area. But that of course wouldn't be real. And so then to talk about the housing area, we do have homes built here, multifamily homes that could accommodate 1,000 or more families. And then up in this area, these are single family homes. That could be your executive, millionaire mile, or it could be single family homes, whatever will be the need of the park as it develops. And this area are rustic lodges. And we were thinking both of the needs for business and industry to have housing when guests come into the park, but also being a good neighbor around the park. The Wilds is about 5 miles in that direction. So there would be some advantages to the Wilds too with lodging on site. And to that end, I'll come over here and show you that this very large space there is a conference center, a hotel and a conference center. Again, to accommodate visitors to the park, needs for business and industry, and conferences on site. But this part really becomes the heart of the park. This is a business incubator, and innovation is a very critical part of this. We're talking not about just an industrial site, but one where the next generation, generation of products, new ideas, things that can revolutionize the world could be thought of and developed on site here. So this incubator would accommodate both wet and dry labs, very large enough to have some very interesting office spaces within where creativity could just explode. And this is our education campus. Again, a very important part of this would be the university research, the skills development. When you talk about adding 10,000 people to this area, you know what a hit that would have on all of the facilities around. And so in that way, we were imagining the workforce of tomorrow as well, and creating the opportunity here for a K or a pre-K through postdoc STEM-focused educational system. So there is enough space here for buildings for that, for buildings for universities to share spaces or to build their own. This is all left open at this point for further expansion of the education campus. But with that, because we are talking about a place where you would live and work and play, there's also space for all of the extracurriculars. So football fields and soccer fields and baseball fields, all are able to be accommodated in there. And then within and integrated around housing and around this area are spaces for commercial spots. So cafes and restaurants and bookstores and all of those boutiques and things that you would want with your daily life. With all of that in this 2,500 acres, there's also ample space, green space left, walking trails. The plan was to create it around the natural beauty of the land. So you see a lot of little lakes that are existing right now on the spot that are maintained and built around. Any questions? Have I forgotten something, Dr. Brown?
Pam just mentioned where the county line comes approximately, so they can.
All right, so this is State Route 83 coming down on the left border of this, and State Route 340 in that direction. At the very top of this is Cumberland, Ohio, and at that point we're in Guernsey County. The rest of it is exclusively in Noble County. Yes?
And would that create a new school district?
Potentially, it's a vision at this point, but we realize that there will be a big demand placed on the existing school systems. We also hear a lot from business and industry about the need for a STEM-focused education, one that really helps to prepare children and young people for the skills that are needed right now and in the future.
Primarily Noble County.
It is. Anything else?
Thank you,
Okay,
Pam.
you're welcome.
So as you can see, this is very, very ambitious. A very expensive option for this park is that airfield down in the bottom left-hand corner that is kind of designed after or modeled after Zanesville Municipal Airport. We feel that there should be some kind of a small field there for maybe unmanned vehicles, or it could be a lot smaller than this project here. But there needs to be there will need to be an expansion of runway at Zanesville and potentially at Cambridge as well to accommodate some extra, accommodate commerce coming in and out. So in other words, usually when we tell this story to audiences, I guess in the kindest thing people say is that I can't wrap my brain around something this big, and how do I know something like this could happen? Is it possible? Is it too risky? How in the world are we going to get that much money? What happens when the gas and oil runs out? Wouldn't it be cheaper to ship our energy somewhere else? Will the economic development bring bad elements into town? Those are the kinds of how do I know statements. And we've wrestled with these since we first started looking at this project, but we were fortunate enough to get a federal grant. And the federal grant was through USDA, and we had an independent group look at our ideas and tell us, number one, is it feasible? Number two, are we on the right scope? Is it too big? And number three, what sectors should we focus on? So that group, and it answered some of the how do I know questions. It moved this from, because we got very positive results, it moved this from just a vision, or what people were calling at the time a dream, or more unkindly they said it's pie in the sky. So, a outside group, not just an outside group, but a group that has very good credentials in looking at university research parks throughout the country. And it's a group called Techonomy. Techonomy is a splinter group from Battelle. And they have looked at university research parks of all sizes. And in fact, our principal researcher, Deb Cummings, been very involved in the development and the continued development of both the Cummings Park and the Research Triangle Park in Raleigh-Durham. So they came back with a couple of things. Number one, they said that here are the opportunities. It should be have an oil and gas focus, and the supply chains associated with oil and gas, petrochemicals, polymers, packaging, logistics, and then there should be a research and engineering and technology component of it, but we should focus on all things energy. I think that wasn't a big surprise for us, but it really reaffirmed what we believed was our calling card for the area. So how do I know? Because experts have told us that this is doable. They have, in addition to telling us what we should focus on, they also suggested 3 anchor tenants. What would be the 3 tenants that would move into the park initially? And they said, number one, we need, since we're located right at the foothills of the Marcellus and Utica shales, we need an applied energy research lab, which would be staffed by researchers from multiple universities that have large R&D budgets, i.e. Ohio State, Ohio University, Marietta College, and Muskingum College, we hope, as well. Susan, are you here? I saw you. Oh, okay. But Susan, actually from Muskingum College, is on our board as well. So Applied Energy Research Lab, and then a multi-education training facility because we feel that we need to embrace the park, we need to embrace the development of skilled workforce. So training and education would be a big part of this as well. And then a business accelerator. You may have heard them called incubators, but they're for small business startups in the area as well. So we feel that with these 3 pillars in place, we could attract, and our calling card, the area, which is energy, we could attract a lot more businesses to the area. So their conclusion, they said that these are the statements they made, essentially that we have the things that they looked at. We are looking at a kind of a non-traditional model of a university research park. Anyway, I guess I got to back up one step. The difference between a university research park and a regular business park is that you have a university presence in the park where education and training and research and development to expand products and services and to do cutting edge research. So they said a traditional model would be one where this would be located on a university campus. I guess there's some wonderful examples of that. Purdue is one of them. They have a research park. But we're a non-traditional model because we're not located on a university campus. We brought some components of the campus into the park. To build a park would take a lot of public and private partnerships to create this initiative, and there appears to be the community will to make this a reality. The last statement that they made was that it's a good idea, it's doable, the scope is good, but it will be done once. These parks won't crop up all over the eastern part of our state in Appalachia. So that gives us a sense of immediacy to this project. If we're going to take advantage of these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, then we need to be ready when the sector comes back full force, the energy sector comes back full force, and with such things as the cracker plant and other projects that I'll mention a little bit here in other parts of Appalachia. So normally when we talk about this, we get some pushback. And the pushback question on the street is yes, but. Yes, but there's no usable workforce here. I've heard it before, nothing changes. I can't wrap my head around it, it's too big. Why would any company want to come and locate here? Those are the kinds of questions that we get. And we've tried to put logical answers to each one of those. I mean, just to take, for example, let's go back to the workforce issue again. Where are you going to get the workforce from? Well, there are 40,000 students right now in community colleges, technical colleges, universities, and technical schools within a 30-mile radius of this park. 40,000 of them in the pipeline right now. A large number of those students currently are going other places to get the knowledge works jobs that take advantage of their skills. So first thing we have to do is stop the bleeding. Stop losing our talented and gifted people because we don't have the jobs for them that they need. Stop them from going other places. Number two, we need to have the jobs like we're talking about here, $60,000 plus type of knowledge economy jobs that would attract people from the metropolitan areas. And our consultant said that we will be able, with those kinds of jobs, we will be able to attract talented and gifted people to our community. The third part of that three-prong approach is grow your own. So we're looking at advanced skill development that starts at the middle school and on up in the STEM programs that would be transferable specifically to working in these jobs in the park. We had that, we experienced that kind of development when we went down and visited Bossier City, Louisiana. In Bossier City, which is in the Shreveport, right next to Shreveport, they developed a university research park out of the revenue generated from the gas and oil and the gaming industry down in Louisiana. The park is in, when we were down there, was in its first phase. It was about a 3,000 acre park. And their focus was on cybersecurity. The reason why they focused on cybersecurity is the military was looking for a place to put a cyber headquarters. And the four-star general at Barksdale Air Force Base said, we want to have it here. So they established it in Shreveport. And so Bossier City, then the first thing that they developed was a $110 million cybersecurity building. And then I use this as an example because that's their anchor store, if you will. That's the first anchor tenant of their park. But from that moment on, the universities emphasized the cybersecurity curriculum. The technical school offered those on-site. Students were studying cybersecurity in the middle school, high school levels, and the graduate levels in that area. Everybody wanted to work in the park and get those good paying jobs. So that's the kind of transformation we envision happening here around the energy sector. And so I think those are the kinds of things, those are the kinds of answers to our yes but questions. And you may have some other yes but questions I'll be glad to answer as well. So yes, but it will take a regional collaboration. Something of this magnitude is going to take a region to develop. In fact, that's what MAGNAM stands for. It's not M-A-G-U-M, it's M-A-G-A-M, and it's Muskingum and Guernsey, Noble, and Morgan counties. So we've taken a regional approach to this from the very beginning, because no single community has the resources to do it on their own. And it's never happened. Doesn't mean it can't happen. But if we take a regional approach, we can get that regional cooperation, then we can leverage some local money and magnify that money by getting matching money from the state, magnify the local money and matching money from the state at the federal level, and that's how you develop and acquire the millions of dollars that it's going to take to do something like this. So those are the kind of the frequently asked questions. The answer to those questions are, number one, when we're looking at a great place to do business, and why would Southeast Ohio be a great place to do business? Well, I think the answer is there are some intentional things going on right now, intentional acts of progress. And I used to go to Knowledge Works, and Brett Visker said, in Ohio, one of the things we're famous is for random acts of progress. Well, these are not random acts of progress, these are intentional, and they connect with each other. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about connecting the dots. We have in southeastern Ohio, we have the Southgate down in southeastern Ohio. That's Bill Dingus, Dr. Bill Dingus is down there developing a park, and the park focuses on manufacturing, but I just learned that it's also focusing on solar energy. You may have heard of, anybody here of Turning Point? It was a big solar array that was going to be developed pretty much in this same area. Well, David Wilhelm and Company were the ones that, and Evan Bloomer were the ones that were promoting that back when Strickland was governor. Subsequently, AEP has developed they were going to develop a solar array in this area as well. So solar is very important we felt, to the region. They took a different approach and moved it down to South Point because they felt, well, not, excuse me, they researched the fact that it's going to be 25% more efficient to have solar panels down just in South Point from this area right here. So I think that's a long way to say, okay, so solar's down there and solar is going to be big. South Central, we have down in the Marietta area, Shell Crescent, USA, with Jerry James. I think a number of you have probably heard his presentation. I thought it was great. Jerry and company from Shell Crescent, USA says, come to this area because we have the cheapest natural gas in the developed world. And so there's a lot of synergy between that and what we're trying to accomplish as well. In Central Ohio, you have Magnum Research Park. What we're trying to do, North Central, you have fuel cells in the Stark area, research being done on that. And then northeastern Ohio, up in Youngstown, you have advanced manufacturing.
Just robust commercial opportunities here. The hospitals and the medical centers expanding so that quality health care is close to home for everyone in the region. Public transit opportunities, regional airports, shopping centers, education, entertainment, all of those quality of life things that millennials are going elsewhere for, that many of us probably long for in ourselves, but we're traveling an hour or 2 hours away to have access to that. So we've been at this for some time. We've been working behind the scenes for a few years before Dr. Brown and I retired from our past roles at Zane State College. And he's mentioned some planning that's taken place recently with some help from the USDA. We have formed a 501c3. We have a board of directors that are helping us, and a number of wonderful volunteers who are helping us along the way as well. The study that we undertook with Techonomy Group really involved a lot of input from people who are on our steering committee, people who are on our board, but many business individuals and educational leaders outside of our small little family as well. We need to continue to work towards acquiring the site. Some developments have been made with that, and some support is coming our way to help with that. We need to solidify the partnerships. Your brochure will show you a list of prospective partners. Some on that list we've had conversations with that have said, yes, I'm in. Some are on that list because they asked to be on that list. And others we still haven't had our first conversations with, but we really see an opportunity for us to collaborate and to combine and to partner for this. We are working on some marketing and outreach right now. All of the things that you see are crudely done in-house with not the most sophisticated software available, but we've been fortunate to have another grant that will help us where we've hired a firm that will help us really brand this in a more sophisticated way. But the outreach is, it's important. It's things like this. It's having conversations in communities with people who are great thinkers and, can help us see both how it can work and some of the hurdles. And we're not afraid of hurdles. We know this is going to be extremely challenging. We've heard that from other communities as well. We've heard, people scoff, and sometimes things don't happen rapidly. And so people start to get a little bit disenchanted. But we're not afraid of that. We know it's going to take a lot of money. We don't know exactly where that's going to come from, but we don't want money to be the reason that this stalls. So we will continue to work on that as well. And in the near future, we want to end up very soon, like within the next year or two, with a solid master plan that will really help us then take that to the next level. Have I missed anything you wanted to say? Okay.
No, thank you. Good job, Pam, for the project.
Right. The question, John's comment was that this is a regional project. This is not, and it's actually a global project, not one that is just Noble County. Noble County does not have the resources to carry the day on this, so it's something that we have to do collectively. I think Norm, and being one of the economic developers here, and Matt Abbott from the Port Authority in Muskegon County, they need large pieces of land to attract major businesses that come into the area. And so this answers that question. If there's some way, and this is what we're looking for, some way to share revenue from the park, then all the 4 counties involved could be attracting companies to come into the park. And we know that there's models like that in other places. Other questions? Yes?
Is this reclaimed land or is this private land?
It's reclaimed. It's one owner. It's AEP. And so it was mined. It was coal mined at one time. So one of the near-term next steps we need to do is a engineering study and geotechnical study of the property. Yes, sir.
Why was it a decision made for an airport with 3 airports relatively handy and all the other problems that a new airport could have been?
Yeah, we just put that in there as a placeholder. As I mentioned, a more economical thing to do would be to increase the roads between Zanesville Airport and Cambridge Airport and extend the runways there. So all those would be Plan A and B, and this would be a fallback position. Excuse me?
Plan A sounds good.
Plan A sounds good, yeah.
I think it's important to understand this is that the presentation of all the concept wasn't done by a conceptual engineer, it was done by an artist. It was something that just gave us a footprint to talk to people about the vision. And so that's very flexible, very fluid in terms of design and content. That will evolve.
Yeah, and we're,
soon.
you know,
I mean, it'll start to evolve once we actually start to build a park. That'll be done by architects.
yeah, if we're, you know, we're talking about capacity building. So, you know, in addition to infrastructure, longer runways, being able to handle the traffic as well. Other questions and comments?
Paul, the other thing that I was hoping we could expand on today is some of the other regional things that are going on, because what we've seen is a huge effort on all of our parts who are working in Ohio, specifically southeastern Ohio or even northeastern Ohio, to start working together on some of these and collaboratively. So I would even invite Bryce to kind of give an idea of what's going on up in your neck of the woods, and we also have someone from Shell Crescent here, so you can see how all of this can tie together. So would you mind? The only thing is, you're going to have to stand next to him because of the microphone.
I'd be glad to share some information. And like I said, I sent Jo an email when she asked me if I might say something. I said, well, if I don't know it, I'll just make it up.
Yeah, make it up.
That sounds great. But thank you. And also, too, it's I'm being from Massillon, Ohio. It's a pleasure to meet Paul Brown.
Thank you, Bryce. I can't get you tickets, by the way.
Just as Jo said, we've been extremely active in the northern part of Ohio, but we've been spending a considerable amount of time along the Ohio River corridor, literally from Monaca, PA to Marietta, Ohio. And we also do have some property in the South Point area as well. So we're very familiar with what's going on. And you know, what we see, and we really see it in our area, in the Stark, Carroll, and that heading towards the river, is people talking about oil and gas. And the comment that I hear quite a bit is, well, oil and gas has kind of come and gone. What people don't realize is we haven't even seen the impact of oil and gas in this area yet, and it's going to be quite exciting. We're working again along the Ohio River. We're currently working with companies from Israel. We're working with companies from Oman. I mean, this is a global situation here. We're spending time in West Virginia working with Secretary at Thrasher's office, and also to Governor Jim Justice's office. As far as the Chinese investment, you know, Chinese announced an $83 billion investment in West Virginia. And the question is that a Christmas card or is that actually a gift? Well, we're not really sure yet, but we feel that it is real. And even if 5% of this $83 billion is real, it's a significant impact. And when they say West Virginia, they don't just mean West Virginia, they mean infrastructure projects in Ohio. This is really the first I'd heard about this project. And you know, when we look at projects like this, you know, I get very excited as politics aside, but as our president would say, you're going to think anyways, so you might as well think big. And that's why this is extremely exciting. What we have found, though, and what's critical is working with economic people, developmenters, working with site selectors. Everybody wants to focus on the site. We have the site. We have to focus on the overall vision. You know, what does this area have to offer? And so, you know, looking at something like this, as we would be, you know, in talking to potential partners, we're close to the interstate system. You know, we're right here at the crossroads of 70 and 77. You know, that's just the location is ideal for distribution companies, and I saw some other companies up there as well. But you've got a fantastic site area there with your infrastructure. Rail is critical. We need to do a little research and find out who that rail is or where that short line goes to. But rail is going to be critical. The other thing that we're really talking about a great deal is redundancy. And when I say redundancy, taking a look at a park like this, and we're currently working with clients from Battelle and also to Tyson Krupp that are looking at redundant sources of power. So you've got AEP here providing power to this facility off the grid, but at the same time, we're working with companies that are putting a natural gas combined cycle energy plants next to parks such as this, so that, you know, we really feel that in the United States, one of our greatest threats would be the grid going down. Well, if the grid goes down, we have next to our park, we have a redundant supply of power. You know, right now we're working on a project, 450 megawatt facility. We were helpful in, we did the site selection work for Advanced Power, who put a 750 megawatt facility in Carroll County, and also they'll be building a second one in Columbiana County, 1,000 megawatt facility. So we've got great sources there. And then the other thing, of course, is going to be redundancy as far as fiber is concerned. We need to have, internet is critical, and we need to have redundant sources of fiber. But looking at a park like this, and just a quick observation, you've got all the things that are necessary for success. Again, stressing the redundant factor for data centers. It's just a great location. And we see the vision. We know it's real. We're working with companies every day that, with what's going on in the Manaka area, we know it's real. But petrochemicals, plastics, derivatives, that's going to be the future of this area. So,
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Bryce.
Bryce, I got a question for you.
Sure.
One of the things that I've heard several times today, I hear it out in the community, is that gas and oil, we've seen it come and go.
Yes.
You know, with the horizontal wells, that or vertical wells rather, that we've had in the past. Are you aware of any predictions as to how long the gas and oil is going to last in this area, in the shale areas?
I don't have predictions, but I'm working with clients right now that need to secure a 25-year supply. And so,
Maybe Mike can answer
So-
that question.
Mike Chadsey and Nathan Lord, I ask you to come up and talk to if you would.
Sure.
yeah.
Hi. My name's Nathan. I'm with Shale Crescent, and we're headquartered in the Marietta region, but what our mission is and what our goal is to bring high-paying manufacturing jobs to the region. And we believe we can do that because this area has a unique set of competitive advantages that the rest of the world just doesn't have. Where we are in the Marietta area, we have the river, and then this whole region has some of the lowest, most abundant natural gas in the developed world. And then on a larger picture, we're within 50% of the population demand that a lot of these petrochemical companies need. So with the shift that's happening globally in industry, we are poised better than the rest of the country to attract a lot of these manufacturing businesses. You know, in 2010, we were producing 3%. And when I say we, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia, we were producing 3% of the nation's natural gas. And today we're producing 30%. And then it looks like in the next 8 years, we're going to be producing around 40% of the natural gas. So the growth that's coming, we believe it's coming this region. Our main competitor is the Gulf Coast. And we say, yeah, the Gulf Coast has the infrastructure. It's been the right decision for the past 60 years. But now, all of a sudden, with the abundance of natural gas, there's an alternative to the Gulf Coast to come and bring the petrochemical industry up here.
And we don't have natural disasters either.
And we don't have natural disasters, just some cold winters every
Yeah,
once in a while.
Thank you. Yeah, you know, if you put these together, and I have to use my terms carefully. I use the term tremors, economic tremors all over Appalachia, and you know, those tremors, you put them together, you can visualize where this is going. I mean, you can turn the weakest economic link in the state, which is Appalachia, into something that's very, very powerful and can drive the economy of the state and the nation right from here.
Mike Chadsey,
Mike?
anything?
So the question about kind of where we are.
You gotta go by this mic.
I will go by his mic. This mic will go by that mic. I wrote that one this morning. So, to the question about kind of where are we and sort of production and expectations for production down the road, many of our producers are drilling longer laterals. You've seen Eclipse is probably the best example of that, even in places like Noble and Guernsey County. So even though the rig count, which was about 59 or 60 in October of 14, down to about 9 or 10 a year or two ago, we're now up in the 23, something like that. And so the number of rigs will continue to increase maybe slightly. We'll be around that number for a little while. But they're becoming more efficient, drilling longer laterals, more frac stages per lateral. The laterals are getting closer together. But even with all of that, we're still only producing a small percentage of the oil and gas in the ground. We're actually only lifting so much of it. So I think there's a lot more ahead of us than behind us. And even though we've been at this since 1814 in Noble County, because of the spacing of the well pads themselves as well as the laterals, there's a lot left still in the ground between pads and between these laterals. I think the other thing too is that you've seen estimates that if you put all the shale plays together, you're looking at upwards of 100 years of natural gas that maybe we didn't have access to before. And when you say access, it's sort of technically had access to it, but also economically. Right now in Appalachia, we're looking at $3 or so in MCF. Boy, that's a lot better than where we were a year or two ago. And even crude oil is hovering around that $60 a barrel number. Those are also really encouraging. So economically, it's encouraging our folks to poke some more holes in the ground, hopefully to the west. You know, we're sort of hugging that eastern Pennsylvania border right now. But that is all starting to continue to evolve and, frankly, from our perspective, improve. So next year will even be better than this year. And thank God we had this year because we were on the ropes the last 2 years. And so to answer your question sort of vaguely, I think there's a lot more ahead of us than behind us, even though we've been at it for a long time. And there are companies, don't let me steal your time, but there are also companies that are in producing and looking at places like in the Hocking Hills and Morrow County and even in deeper than the shales. There are a company like Cabot and others that have moved into Ohio and said, shales are great, what's deeper? You know, Trenton and the Black River and some of these other formations that our guys have been at for a long time now, but using this horizontal technology, can we do it better? So I think that's encouraging too.
And I just want to go on record. I mean, you've spoken to this group for the last 6 or 8 years,
Yeah.
off and on, so everybody probably knows who you are, but you probably ought to tell those
Sure.
people who don't know so they believe what you just said.
Sure. Well, I made it up on the way in. So, fake it till you make it. My name is Mike Chadzig. I'm with the Ohio Oil and Gas Association. I also play a very minor role with the folks at Shale Crescent and certainly support everything, Bryce, that you guys are doing at the Ohio River Corridor and Dr. Brown with the research project as well, too, because so much of this is driven by our producers. To Nathan's point about the low-cost, abundant natural gas, that's what our guys are the best doing at. So we're going to pull it out of the ground, and it's up to you all to find a place to burn it here locally. And if you keep doing that, I promise you we will keep finding natural gas wherever formation. So, but that's me and that's us.
And Mike, that's a great point because, you know, what we're talking about here is not only business development, but we're talking about advances in technology as well. So that even with the reserves that we have and the long-term prediction on those reserves, if we find ways of getting the product out of the ground with less pressure, you know, that could have a significant impact on the and extend that life even further.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the world is needing more energy. It doesn't matter what you are. So, you know, we're not talking only about the exploration, the transmission of energy, but we're talking about smart grid resources, transferring energy into electric. If we got the, and we do have the cheapest natural gas in the world, then we ought to be able to somehow figure out how we can transfer that into the cheapest electricity in the world. And if you're a company that's dependent on energy, this is the place you need to be.
I just want to thank you all for coming and thank Homeland Realty once again for sponsoring the broadcast of this for local television, which will play for the next 2 weeks. So local people, you can tell them about this and have them watch so that they're learning all the same things you are. and also to Cambridge Packaging for the pastries this morning. So thank you very much. If there are no other questions, we're at the end of the program. So thank you.